Hey guys, I just finished recording with David Ronaldo from College Zoom, and on this episode, we talked about waitlist and appeals. So, if you're a senior and you were denied from a school, or you are on the waitlist and it's the spring semester before May 1 and you're trying to figure out what your options are, this is a great 15-minute video that just explains the purpose of the waitlist, things that you can do, what's within your reach, and also how to be smart so that you still have a college and a home by May 1. So check it out, and all of the videos will be housed online at collegecounselorrally.com. And don't forget to check me out on Instagram at College Counselor Rally. So I'm gonna let the video and the recording get going, and I hope you guys are doing well. Everyone, it is Casey Rowley, college counselor, and every week we're going to be putting these little videos together to get you guys some content and information. And we have experts in the field, and today we have actually Beverly Hills High School alumni, David Ronaldo with College Zoom. And we're going to be talking about appeals and waitlists. But before we get to that, David, why don't you give us an elevator, less than 30-minute pitch of your bio and a little bit of your background.
Will do. Thank you, Casey. So hi, everyone. My name is David Reynaldo. I graduated from Beverly Hills High School in 2006. And now, 14 years later, I am the college planner of College Zoom. We're ranked #1 in Los Angeles for college counseling in Yelp. And we also have the best success rate in the country for helping kids get into their dream schools.
It's April, and we have a lot of seniors who have heard most of their acceptances by now. And with those acceptances, we also get what's called the wait list, and then students who are just flat out denied. So before I guess we dive into those topics, let's back up and discuss what a wait list actually means, just for families who may just want some background information.
Okay, great. So let's say that a college wants its incoming class to be 3,000 kids when the dust settles. But colleges oftentimes know that if you admit 3,000 kids, you're going to get a whole lot less who will actually commit. So what colleges do is they over-admit. They might take 9,000 kids, hoping that 3,000 will settle and actually come. Now, one thing that's a little bit interesting about this year's waitlist process in 2020 that we haven't really seen a lot in many previous years is that in 2019, a lot of colleges started to under-enroll from their normal yield levels. And what that means is that, let's say that a school who used to take maybe 9,000 kids trying to get 3,000 started seeing maybe 3,200 come. And you would see these crazy stories about UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, UC Irvine cramming 3 kids into dorm rooms meant for only 2. And so in 2019, which took a lot of people by surprise, a lot of colleges started to take less kids up front, and it freaked a lot of people out because people will traditionally hear, if you're on the wait list, it's not going to happen, make plans elsewhere. If you're rejected, don't even try to reverse it. And then 2019, we saw a lot of people across the country get rejected and waitlisted en masse. And it became a year where people got off the wait lists and overturned rejection letters en masse. Even Cornell had over twice as many people they took off their wait list last year than in any prior year past. So when we talk about what the wait list is, think of it as the overtime period in a sports game. It's not over. And if you throw in your hat, your chance of getting any kind of different outcome is 0%. And I think a good way to understand how to keep your cool in this maddening process, because it isn't unfair, and the colleges do this because they want to manage their yield, but of course at the detriment of a lot of people's emotions. Think about maybe a school would usually take a kid who's 7 out of 10, with a 10-point scale being 10 the best. If a kid was 7 out of 10, they would usually take them in a normal year, right? But with the trend towards under-enrollment, you're seeing the colleges take kids who might be that 9 or 10 out of 10, maybe a couple 8s, and the 7s got completely gobsmacked, and they're completely surprised. Now, those kids are freaking out, but when those 9 or 10 out of 10 kids assess their options, they'll have a lot more. They'll pick only one school they could each enroll in, and then the colleges will dial it back down to the 7s where it was initially expected to be.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. That's incredibly helpful. And I think something to remind families of with the wait list. So we'll talk about what you can do to remain on the wait list and make sure that you do throw your hat in that ring if it is still an option you want to consider. But then also being mindful of looking at your accepted choices of what you have right now. So you're thinking about having a home and committing to a college by May 1. and not waiting for the wait list, but doing what you can to remain on the wait list, and then making sure that you have a spot available. And you can submit a deposit by May 1st, but let's say your wait list offer comes through typically after May, sometimes into June, then you can forego your deposit and attend that waitlist school. But I think it's important that a lot of students are realistic about the time frame of what a waitlist could take.
Totally. And so I tell them, submit your deposit to your second choice school and put your heart and soul
Mm-hmm.
to that waitlist letter, but be prepared just to say, at least I tried to get it all out there and that's my closure. And if
Mm-hmm.
you get off the waitlist, fantastic. The deposit was your consolidation prize for going elsewhere. And if not, you still have a wonderful school to fall back to.
Perfect. So let's say you get waitlisted. First thing, make sure that you follow the directions that the college is telling you to do. So go to your application portal, check the box, and indicate that you want to remain on the wait list. And then if there's space for additional information or to write additional information, what do you recommend to students?
So the number one rule is that it's not supposed to be a love letter. And there's a lot of confusion about that. But you think about it, everyone who's appealing has some reason they love the school. Otherwise, you're not going to put
Mm-hmm.
themselves through that emotional process. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody's love for a school because their parents went there better than someone else's love for the school because of their pre-med program or because of the business school. It's so hard. And when you default to writing a love letter, it's just an argument based on the emotions. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to measure. The way that we recommend that you go about a wait list or a rejection letter appeal, which they should follow the exact same strategy, is to start with your original application. What people don't oftentimes realize is that when the two different readers who go through the applications are doing the initial review, in many schools
Mm-hmm.
have an evaluation sheet and they're grading the applicants across a multitude of different attributes and qualities, and then grading the actual extent to which they embody those qualities, right? So when someone gets
Mm-hmm.
waitlisted, there could be a lot of reasons why. It's rarely just one thing. I see the examples online where someone said, oh, there's another Timothy Jones at my school, and we kind of mess up transcripts, and that never happens. Oftentimes, what happens with successful waitlist and appeal letters is that you're actually going to look at your application and you're trying to figure out that because the application is not you. And I tell kids all the time, I know you think that the school just personally attacked you and destroyed your dreams and aspirations, but the application was not you. You really have to figure out what's the application, what really is me, and how can I go back there and fill in the holes or add different contextualizations, new information, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
previously, because that's what the school will consider new and compelling information. And when we talk about what the school is looking for, well, it's really they're looking for kids who embody their ideal qualities. So we tell people that
Mm-hmm.
appeals and waitlists are really just your chance to show how am I a stronger applicant today than I was back when you saw me when I applied, either because I admitted certain things that I really did do,
Mm-hmm.
made me a stronger fit, or maybe I didn't, explain that I had certain things that because I was embarrassed of, or different qualities or different situations
Mm-hmm.
that will help me be seen in a whole new light.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, the keywords are new and compelling information, but then also to go back through your application. I don't know, I would print it out if I were a student and kind of go through and ask myself, like, did I explain this in the proper way? Or was this kind of more me talking about my challenge and not enough about like my growth? And so, I really like reviewing your application and then also thinking about what you have done since then, and then making sure you send like an updated transcript and things like that. Okay, that's great. So waitlist, if you're on it, and they give you space to write a letter, follows those things, commit to a college by May 1. You can always forgo the deposit, and then move on with your life, I think. So if we go to the next scenario, which just, I'm sorry, you guys, if you're a senior and you're just getting those denial letters and you're home, like it's just not fun ever. So let's say you're a senior and you are denied from one of your top choice schools and you are just like, I am going to appeal this. It's like, first, I guess, before we talk about the compelling ways you can appeal, what would be your recommendation as to appealing, I guess, in the first place, or even considering it?
Well, I say you should do it, because if you don't do it, your chance is 0%. And for a lot of kids, even if
Mm-hmm.
they don't use us, say for our appeal service, I tell them do it because every year the colleges draw a line in the sand, and that's their over/under bet. And you
Hmm.
have no idea if they're going to overshoot or undershoot by a little or a lot. If they overshoot their bet, then they'll probably take nobody, even if you're the greatest kid ever, right? Because there's no spots in the
Hmm.
class. But if they really undershoot it, which we saw at least happen one year at USC, like almost every kid
Hmm.
who gets an appeal gets in. So sometimes kids you would never even thought would have gotten in the regular admissions process. So for the kids to have the closure and just at least know that they tried and put their hat in the ring, I say always go for it. Pragmatically speaking, you don't have to write a different appeal letter for every school because you sent the same application to every school, especially if it's the Common App or the UC.
Hmm.
So when we talk about appeals and waitlist letters, they're both synonymous. They're really only different technically in terminology, but you would use the
Hmm.
exact same letter for one school as you would for the next school, except expanded or condensed to that school's length limit.
Okay. I love that. And I think kind of the same rule applies. Like you can write these letters, send in an appeal, go through the waitlist process. But at the end of the day, you want to also, put your attention towards your accepted options. And then, of course, if it goes through, every year is different. It can always change. So you never know. I love if you don't try, it's a 0% chance. But also being realistic and getting excited about, a home and your college choices. You applied to these schools for the first place, for a reason. So either way, wherever you go, wherever you get accepted, it's going to be a wonderful experience, whatever, you make it.
Yeah, and I say, most kids at the they'll say after the meetings that I learned so much about myself having to reevaluate what I could have said, and that's
Hmm.
not my application, and now I can actually disconnect
Hmm.
that and not take it personally. That they say, I don't even care what happens, which is they care what happens because they just paid for the service. But I'm like, but they'll say, I don't even care what happens because what I gained from it and my closure is so important. So that's why I love it to do it, because you're so right, Casey. You have to focus on the future. But for a lot of kids, this one student
Hmm.
in particular, he was really freaked out about not getting into USC because his sister did. And I told him, Nick, you may not know that there's at least two different buses leaving the station. You can transfer as a year one transfer in college. You can transfer as
Hmm.
transfer, get transferred to the UCs. So the idea that this high school experience was your only time to ever even have a shot is just
Hmm.
not reality. And if you look at the admissions process, this might have been the only time in your life that somebody who's not in your family, who doesn't really know you and give you benefit of the doubt, has had to judge you as a stranger. And that will happen in your jobs, in
Hmm.
your career, and this is the first of many kinds of selection processes that you can learn from and become
Hmm.
better at. And that's why I tell them, look ahead because the future's ahead of you, but also, make sure you kind of look in year six, just to make sure that, how to do better next time.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great almost wrap up to our conversation. If you're a younger family and you're not even at a senior appeal waitlist acceptance process, like that's okay. Take the time to think about what you would put in an application. And so I think, this can be kind of a crazy, strange process, but I love that you said it's the first of many selections and it's not this one piece of information will not determine the rest of your life. So what you make of it and what you do, and I love that there's multiple buses, you can get to where you want to go. So so David, real quickly before we wrap up, where can families go online to either check out some of those articles you mentioned and your organization?
Yeah, so if you go to collegezoom.com, we have a blog button on the top of our website, and we'll periodically post up college-specific waitlist and rejection letter appeal articles for advice. And I would say that for any family who's listening, I think the most surprising thing that tends to happen is that they think, I haven't done anything since I applied, so what can I say that's new? And I would say that, I've almost never seen an appeal that only focuses on new information from when you applied. A lot of times it's actually retroactive. It's going back and re-examining things that you maybe didn't even think to contextualize in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then that, if you didn't explicitly say it in the original application, line by line, then that explicit new detail is new, and that can completely give your read-through a new lens. And I should actually explain that when admissions officers get waitlist and appeals letters, they look at the actual letter that you submit, then they actually review the entire application. Now,
Mm-hmm.
people think about the appeal letter, what it is it's a missing puzzle piece, where if you can look at your application, which is why I always like, drum in. I'm like, look at that main application. Then when you almost provide the magic puzzle piece, now they can read that, and then the things that you may have generalized or kind of alluded to but haven't really specified in the application, but that piece, they can now get an entirely different read and perspective from your original application. So the good appeal letters or waitlist letters will actually be able to fill in context that will give your whole application a brand new read.
I love that. I love that so much. So for seniors, that's great advice. And again, if you're a younger student, maybe, I don't know, if you have time, write an application and just see, and then review it as if you were an admissions officer and think of what holes do I have? Because if you have some time, juniors over the summer as you prepare for the fall, kind of gathering your information. Well, thank you, David, so much for joining us today. And yeah, we'll chat soon.
It's my pleasure. Go Normans.